Executive Director in Chicago, Illinois. We are business professionals. We have a platform that offers our members the opportunity to share ideas, create joint ventures, and most importantly, to have qualified business referrals. In 1997, I decided that I was going to join BNI and become an entrepreneur. Like you, I knew instinctively that I needed to have great personal and professional growth, and so I went towards growing that way. In 1997, I also was introduced to our special guest today. Her name is Patricia Fripp. Fripp, as her friends call her, arrived in the United States when she was 20 years old. She had $500 in her pocket, and she had no contacts. She was a hairstylist that became the first woman president of the National Speakers Association, a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, and an in-demand presentation skills expert. I've asked her today to come and help us to have a competitive edge against our competition. Patricia, our friends are wondering, how did you get to be from a hairstylist to the president of the National Speakers Association?
I learned a very simple lesson when I was a young woman, and that is to take advantage of opportunity. And without a doubt, Elena, I would not have been in a position to take advantage of some of these opportunities that presented themselves if I hadn't learned to speak. For me, I had a personality that made it easy to stand up and speak in the first place. However, I went to Toastmasters and Dale Carnegie and then the National Speakers Association and developed the skills. And who knows what happens in America.
Oh, my goodness. Well, to help us also on this event, I would like to introduce you to my new best friend. His name is Paul, and he's going to be our moderator. Paul, would you please tell our guests about the polls and the questions you're going to be heading up for us today?
Absolutely, Elena. On the right-hand side of your screen, there is a chat window and also a polls tab. Excuse me, whenever a poll comes up, it will have a yes or no answer. You just click yes or no and then click vote. To return to the chat window, all you have to do is click the chat tab again. And then in the chat window, you can also put in any questions that you might have throughout the call, and we'll answer those as well.
We want to put Paul to work tonight. So
absolutely, make him earn money.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Patricia, I've heard you frequently say that all speaking is public speaking. What exactly do you mean by that?
Many people, Elena, do not consider themselves public speakers. However, outside the privacy of your own home, all speaking is public speaking. If you have a corporate job and you stand next to the chief financial officer at the cafeteria line, whatever comment you make can, in fact, be remembered, repeated, and come back to give you a promotion or a unique opportunity. If you are an entrepreneur, as many of our friends are, we go to networking events. So it doesn't matter if you go out and there are dozens of interesting people you could meet if you can't have the confidence to introduce yourself and be interesting. So consider this, all speaking is public speaking unless you're in your home alone.
Well, you know, BNI, Business Network International, I know that you have some unique networking ideas and techniques for us. Could you share a few of those with us tonight?
Yes, and the first is a matter just like any other presentation, you get prepared. Mm-hmm. And the most frequently asked question when we go to any social event, be it a family picnic or the neighbor's party or a networking event or a business situation or association meeting, the first question is what you do. Mm-hmm. And most of us answer with a company and a job title. Hi, I'm a computer programmer for Levi Strauss. What I recommend we do is answer the question, what you do, with something interesting, creative, that really represents the outcome of what you do. So, for example, depending on the circumstance, I might say, so someone would say, Patricia, what do you do? And I say, well, I double the output of most sales professionals. To which people would say, well, how do you do that? And then I have a conversation. Or if I'm at a convention and visitors bureau or an association executive event where there are meeting planners, if somebody says, what do you, I might say, I make meetings and conventions more exciting. And then people are going to say, well, how do you do that? And I might say, well, you know how companies have meetings that are supposed to be exciting and they're often dull and boring? Well, I have some practical ideas I present in an entertaining way, and the company gets their message across, and so I go on. And then they ask me questions.
So you make them curious, right? You make them curious? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's it. Be prepared, say something interesting, and it's not a job title. The second, and this is probably the most fun, travel with your own PR agent. Noah had a very good idea.
Noah?
Yes, he brought the animals onto the ark 2 at a time.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting what we do is go out with a friend. For example, one of my best friends, and I bet a lot of your friends and our listeners are familiar with Susan Rowan. She wrote the book How to Work a Room, and the secrets of savvy networking, and what do I say next, and how to create your own luck. Susan and I often go out socially to business events, and we walk in together, we separate, we come together, we separate, we come together. So let's just say Susan was talking to you and I approach. She would say, Elena, let me introduce you to my friend Patricia Fripp. She truly is one of the best speakers and executive speech coaches in the country. In fact, Kipling, a personal finance magazine, said the best investment you could make in yourself is to attend one of her speaking schools. Now, can you see what we've done? She has just said about me what I honestly would not say about myself in polite society. Then I'm going to say, and I bet Susan's too modest to tell you, she's the best-selling author of 6 books. She's been on the front cover of USA Today and the Wall Street Journal. In fact, she's even been in Playboy.
Playboy?
Yes.
Playboy?
And then Susan says, yes, but not as a centerfold.
Okay.
And of course, just as you laughed, so does everyone else. Now, before I tell you the rest of the story, Paul, why don't you bring up the poll for our listeners on are you comfortable in networking events? And if you're one of Elena's friends, I would expect you might say yes, but let's see based on who's already signed in. Because when you are funny and interesting, Elena, when the people who have met you go to work the next day, not only have you become an object of interest to them, they become an object of interest to you when their friends say, well, where'd you go last night? Well, I went to the Convention Visitors Bureau mixer. Was it fun? Yes, great food, great venue, met some interesting people. Who did you meet? And then they can say a best-selling author, a popular speaker, and would you know the author's even been in Playboy, but not as a centerfold. So again, you get a laugh. So what we now need our people to do, our friends, is can you look at the polls on the right side and click yes or no, are you comfortable in networking events? Paul will just keep up the poll. 67% said yes, 33% said no. So that's great, Elena. Now you have at least a technique that can help you. Go out with a friend and you rehearse what you say about each other before you go out.
Could you give us another one, Patricia? This is really fun.
About networking events?
Yeah, another technique. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, about networking events, so one, it's the self-introduction. Two, it's travel with someone.
Mm-hmm.
The third would be very simply, don't wait for someone else to take the initiative. You need to take the initiative and go prepared to have your questions prepared. So, for example, for me, and this is not difficult, this is natural, I will always go up to somebody, perhaps a well-dressed woman, and say, St. John never looked as good. Well, one, they like to know that you know they can afford St. John. Or, if a gentleman has a very interesting tie, I might say, because they've got a name tag on, John, I can see you work very hard at getting people to initiate conversations with you because you're wearing a Looney Tune tie. So again, what you are doing, you are wearing something that it is easy for someone to comment on. As you probably know, I am famous for wearing hats. I don't wear hats when I speak. I wear hats at networking events because my goal is to be noticed. And there is one part about wearing a hat. Total strangers who would not initiate a conversation with anybody else always make a comment, wow, nice hat. Or, wish I had enough comfort to wear a hat. And then what I do is say, yes, and you know, when you wear a hat, nice people like you talk to you. How do you do? I'm Patricia Fripp. Who are you? So, one, have something to say that doesn't say a job title. Two, take a friend. Three, wear something distinctive. And people will talk to you. And then, of course, don't wait. So that's really 4 techniques. Have something to say to start a conversation yourself. And it could be as simple as, wow, have you tried these cheese puffs?
Right. So when you're collaborating with a friend to go to a networking group, what do you want to plan before you hit the door? So just give us just a little recap, too, of what our friends would do.
Good. Well, Susan Rowan would tell you, because she reads 3 newspapers a day, just be aware of what's going on in the news.
Okay.
So, for example, I was one of the people who got delayed 12 hours traveling because of the situation in Chicago. So, of course, most people, even when I brought this up, how are you? Well, a little jet lagged because I was 12 hours late because of the situation in Chicago. If they didn't know, they said, well, what happened in Chicago? Well, someone set fire to the communication center. So again, know what's going on in the news. That would be part. And one of my favorite questions, if I'm in conversation, and this would be more in a social event. So there's public speaking at professional events. There's also public speaking when you might go to a wedding, or you might go to a dinner party or a friend's barbecue. I love, because I love romance, I like to ask, how did you meet and fall in love with your spouse? And here's a technique. Unless the person you are talking to is going through a painful, expensive divorce, when you ask them about how they fell in love, Elena, what happens? They go in and they tap into those wonderful feelings of when you fell in love. And what you want to do, Elena, is have people you meet or people you meet again and again associate feeling good with talking to you.
Great point. Oh, yeah. And you do that by tapping into a story that resonates with them, that makes them have those feel-good feelings.
Well, yes, it's an emotional situation of which they would always have a story. Now,
Right.
we won't take our time now, but I bet you could wax eloquently for 45 minutes about how you met and fell in love and developed your relationship with your husband. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a couple here, if you're meeting a couple together, I always say, well, how'd you meet and fall in love? And I might say that to you, then I'd turn to your husband and say, do you have the same version of the story? Which again is often hysterical because people have different memories of who took the initiative. Not always, but sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, okay, I want to ask you more questions about stories. Okay, tell us how we can incorporate stories into our public speaking.
Well, whether you're talking to one person or 5 people or 10 or 100, we have to remember that most individuals, when we hear that we're going to tell a story, we feel it's a reward. Because when we're little children, we all have our version of clean your teeth, get in your jammies, get in the bed, mummy, daddy, grandmother, auntie, is going to come tell your story. So if people, even if you're in a business conversation or presentation, and then you say, well, for example, we know we're going to hear a story. And again, a lot of this is very much people associating feeling good with you. They might not realize why they feel good. They just know that they do. And that's what a story does. There is no better way to explain the complex than with a story or an example. There's no better way to tell people how you're going to learn something new rather than tell them a story about what they're going to do or how different life will be like. So for most of our business audiences, what we're going to do, Elena, is whether it's a networking event or whether it's actually a sales presentation or a conversation that could lead to business, or if it's a formal sales presentation, when we tell a story as business professionals, what we want to do is tell stories about our satisfied clients. Because consider this. It seems as if some of our prospects take classes to resist a good sales presentation. Mm-hmm. However, nobody can resist a good story well told. So the question then becomes, how do you make a story well told? And just as when you go out to your networking event with how you introduce yourself, or how you go with your friend and do the introductions, you need to have rehearsed your stories before you have a sales conversation. So think of it this way. There's a 3-step process: situation, solution, success. So the situation is, imagine one of your clients called and said, help! Now, I know they didn't. Actually, I have clients that do call and say, help. I got to give a speech next week. What the heck do I do? So I do actually hear this. But imagine you have a client that said, help. And based on, think of this as a specific client. How would they articulate what their problem was? And I'll give you an example. Woman called Shelley called me and said, Patricia, help. We are a technology company and we only hire really experienced sales professionals who've been in our world for at least 5 to 10 years. We naturally assumed that they could tell us company story well. We had a meeting, they all had to present in front of our senior management, and we were horrified. So I have been charged, and these were her actual words, to scour the planet and find the best sales presentation skills team available. Lucky for me, you're 38 miles from headquarters. Now, that was what she actually said, because the important part of telling a story, Elena, is to deliver the help, the situation, in the words of the client. So what you have just heard is the actual words that my client said. What I did not say was, I had a call from a woman, Shelley, who told me that they're in a technology company, they only hire very experienced sales professionals, and they assumed that they'd be able to stand up and speak about what the company does. Then they had a sales meeting, and they were horrified that nobody could articulate what they actually do. See, that is reporting on the dialogue. What makes a good story is you deliver the dialogue. So I would challenge all our friends who are listening in, or those who listen in the replay later, that's fine, you still get the same content.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is go to your website or go to your letters of reference, take your real life clients. And then what you might do is call them and say, Elena, I never get tired of telling the story about how we worked with your sales team to increase sales. Would you mind telling me in your words, how did you articulate your problem before you called me? So you see, your clients will remind you, and they will give you much better content that you can use in your stories than if you wrote it yourself. So then once you got the situation, so then the solution is what you did for the satisfied client that means you would actually do for the prospect. So what we then did is the process that we do with all our clients. We listen to Shelley, who delivered their presentation the best. We had it transcribed, we rewrote it, we edited it down, we made it more dramatic, and then one of our Fripp team members stood up and delivered the sales presentation. And everybody around the table, all the executives said, we have never heard anyone tell our story that well. Got to understand, this was us who learned the presentation once we tightened and dramatized it. So the point is, look, if somebody who doesn't work for you, he's just part of our team, can learn it word for word, we can train your people with 5 and 10 years experience to do the same. So first of all, we took their message, we helped them improve it, we sent them ahead of time so everyone can learn it, and then we had in-person and follow-up with virtual sessions. So you see, then what I do, I'm explaining what we did in my words. Then, so you've got the situation, the solution, and the success again is in the client's words. So then I can say, Elena, and if you'd like to talk to Shelley, she will tell you, without a doubt, the best investment we have made in our training is to bring in the Fripp team. We keep very good details, and within 4 months, we had generated 400% more sales than we had the year before. Now, listen to the difference. It would be very difficult, like going to a networking event and saying, hey, Meetings and Conventions magazine said I'm one of the 10 most electrifying speakers. It is, I could say, Elena, there's no guarantee that you will do as well as the ABC company. However, Shelley did tell me that they'd increase sales 400% over what they'd done the few months before. I could do it that way. It's just so much more fun when you use her words, because then you can be animated. And this is a key point. You can say anything about yourself when you're using somebody else's words.
Great point. Yes. Yes.
And again, if we interview our clients, if they're satisfied clients enough that they gave us a reference on the website or in your file, if you put their letters in your press kit, they will come up with wonderful raves about you that you wouldn't come up with yourself, and it's real. You need to record the conversations and then edit them down. So maybe it's time now for another poll.
Paul. Come on. Paul? Yes.
So let's ask our listeners, do they perceive that they deliver presentations? And again, that can be sales presentations, it could be presentations, marketing presentations. See, I started my speaking not knowing I would be a full-time speaker and then trainer and coach. I was delivering free talks at Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs to promote my men's hairstyling business. And I realized after 3 talks that this was the least expensive way to promote my business. Now, if we look at the world that we now live in, Elena, there are a lot more ways. There's YouTube, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Twitter. And feel free to tweet any wisdom you hear at #PFripp, #FrippVD. So please feel free to do that. However, to maximize, especially locally, what you are doing, there is nothing better for an entrepreneur or a consultant or a coach to actually deliver presentations. And what people don't realize is the toughest job for any Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Chamber of Commerce, women and business and professional women, any of these organizations, the biggest challenge is finding a free speaker for next Thursday. And if it's you, you have a competitive advantage. All right, well, good. The statistics are 80% are giving presentations, however they define the presentation. 20% said no. Well, then the question would be, is of course, would the people who said they don't give presentations, if they learned how to do it, would they feel comfortable? In fact, Paul, while we continue talking, can you put up another poll for the 20%? If you knew exactly how to deliver a presentation, if you knew, hang on, I'm gonna turn off that phone, hang up on somebody. If you knew exactly how to do it, would you in fact have the confidence to get started? And you start with free presentations, you can rehearse with your friends, so that's what you can do. So back to you, Elena.
Yeah, part of our of BNI is to give a 60-second infomercial on yourself every week, and then periodically throughout the year we do a 10-minute presentation where we give our members the opportunity to present themselves to their chapters. What a great way to be able to practice.
Well, let's start working on that one sentence. Now, would you, in fact, let's open our chat window. Let's see. Cynthia wants to know, let's see, how does this apply to webinars? We're going to get that later. Let's see. In fact, would you like to give me your 1 minute, Elena, and see if I have any advice? Are you brave enough? We didn't plan this, but if you want to, you can get free advice.
You can get free advice. Yes, I will do that. Hello, my name is Elena McKinney. I'm Executive Director for BNI in Northern Illinois. BNI, Business Network International, is the largest word-of-mouth referral marketing engine in the world. Our clients are chapter members who need or want qualified business referrals. And we're going to help you do that several different ways. 1, we have ongoing training in word-of-mouth marketing. 2, we have a structured system. And 3, we believe in giver's gain. If I help you, you help me, and together we'll generate business we couldn't have generated on our own. Elena McKinney, BNI.
Good. Now that is obviously good, and you are an expert at that. And what I would encourage you to do, just to help you fall in love with your own message, is to, before you actually say that, I would not say, don't tell your name up front.
Okay.
I would stand up and say, are you looking to grow your business? Would you like to make more sales more often? Would you like to expand your reach to other vibrant entrepreneurs in your community? If so, we need to have a conversation. So what you're doing is you're letting people know what's in it for them, and then they're more likely to pay attention.
And so now whenever I attend one of my chapters, the people that are on this call will know that you coached me on that. Yes.
You've been hypnotized. You've been hypnotized. All right, good.
Thank you so much.
Now let's look at and it, please, anyone who wants to type in a question that we can answer, I suggest you make it short and specific, but we're here to serve you. So let's look at your 10-minute presentation. And this will be, the principles are the same, Elena, whether it's 10 minutes or whether it's half an hour or an hour, hour and a half, or 3 hours. There are 3 ingredients that go into every presentation. There is obviously the content, what it is you actually say. Mm-hmm. And if you're talking about your business, you know what you're going to talk about. However, then we need to have a very simple conversational structure that helps you remember it, and so do the people who are listening. So if you want to tweet, if you want to write something down, write this down, because this is very valuable. 1, we speak to be remembered and repeated. Secondly, we are speaking very often for the audience of our audience. Now let me give you...
Go back to that whenever you... Yeah.
Let me clarify that.
Yes, yes.
So 1, when Susan, Roanne, and I go out and we say something interesting, we know there's a good chance what we say is going to be read at work. Now let's just say you're at your BNI meeting and you are delivering, whether it's your 1 minute or your 10-minute presentation. You are delivering that 10-minute presentation for the people who are in the audience. Maybe some of the people in your audience are not exactly prospects for you. However, if they can remember and repeat, and through your stories and examples they can see what they heard you say, then when they go out with their clients and their friends, they can tell them, you should have met, I wish you could have met Susan. She was at my BNI meeting and I thought of you immediately when she said she was an image consultant. Because just last week you were telling me you got a closet full of clothes, you never know what to wear for important meetings. And she told this story about when she first met this speaker, Patricia. Okay, so can you see what I mean? That's what I mean by the audience of the audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And then 3?
Well, 1, so yes, exactly. So first of all, there's the content, what you say. Then organize the structure, and then your delivery would be easier. But let's go back to the structure. Think of it this way. The first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds has the most impact. So if there is any part, I would say absolutely script, that you have to totally internalize, it would be how you open. Because that's when you're going to be most nervous if you're not an experienced presenter. So that would be it. And again, I recommend it's something that's of interest that includes the audience rather than introducing your name. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we don't want to sound the same as anybody else. That's the point. We don't sound, and if most people introduce themselves with their name, then engage them by saying, are you looking for more prospects? Or, what would it do for your career if your phone rang off the hook? Whatever it is that you want, or this is one that you could use. Have you ever walked into a room of strangers and been terrified to speak? So again, as part of BNI, they are getting comfortable introducing themselves in a safe environment. Just as with a speech. You don't want to go out and give your first speech to 1,000 people. You want to invite 20 people in your living room and practice. Or you want to stand up at a church or in a group that knows and loves you and is forgiving while you practice. So then every presentation has a central theme, a premise, or a big idea. And may I suggest for your 10-minute BNI speech, your central theme, your premise is that your company or your business will be better off when you do business with me. Now, you're not actually stating that. That's what the big theme is. So what you have to do with your talking points, which I call my points of wisdom, is you then prove that. So, for example, whatever your business is, let's just say you're an image consultant. And I just throw that out because when I first started in business, I went and gave a free speech and I met an image consultant, Diane Parenti, and when we were hanging out together, I said, okay, come do that image consulting for me. And when she came to my house, we had 2 piles of poor. So we had 2 piles of clothes, a pile for me and a pile for the poor. Well, we were going to give them to the poor, but Parenti said the poor have enough problems without being badly dressed. So you see, so Parenti could tell those funny stories about meeting me. If you've ever seen Patricia Fripp, you know she always looks good. Well, yeah, should have met her when I did. And she gives me full permission to tell you the story. So what she could do is say, how would you dress for a networking event? How would you dress if you're trying to make a sale? How would you dress to give a presentation? So whatever it is, you have your talking points that you're going to give examples and explain. And what you are doing in your 10-minute presentation, and this is the reason, Elena, that really you want to give stories, because you are answering the unasked questions of the audience, which is, what would it be like if I hired you to work with me? 2, what can I expect from working with you? And 3, can I afford to do business with you? And those questions are answered within your presentation. And I'll give you a specific example. I've helped a lot of financial advisors give speeches to develop their business. And of course, most people are not going to say, well, I don't know if I have enough money or make enough money to come talk to a financial advisor. But what you do with your presentation is, I say, tell a story about Mary, who was an executive assistant at Cisco. She was making this much money a year. She had this much saved. She heard a presentation like you and came to my office, and this is what we did. Well, Mary was very happy with the results that we got, that she recommended her boss. Now, her boss makes this much money. This is what his net worth was with his spouse. They came in, and this is what we did. Now, they were so happy, they actually recommended us to speak to somebody. So you can see through stories you're explaining, doesn't matter what your position is, I can help you. And that is answering the unspoken questions of the audience. And that's how you give a valuable, short 10-minute speech. And people will remember it because your stories.
Right. And you're getting into the conversation with them, right? I mean, it was already in their head. Yes.
And what we, Elena, just if we were sitting down, we just met at coffee, and you say, oh, Patricia, you're giving a speech to this group tonight. What are you going to talk about? And I would say, how entrepreneurs like you can expand your business. And you'd say, well, that sounds good. I'm an entrepreneur. How do I do that? And I'm going to say, well, you have to learn to maximize opportunities, and the best opportunity for an entrepreneur is to give speeches. And then you might say, well, I've never given a speech. How do you do it? And I said, well, there are three. Can you see what I'm doing? I am answering the questions you would ask me when I'm standing up in a situation where, based on what I have just said and the audience has heard, I know what they are thinking. And that's why a presentation that is good is organized logically, almost as if it would be in a conversation.
Yes. Oh,
so perhaps it is time to ask our friends,
yes,
would you be interested in a cost-effective way to improve your presentation skills?
Well, I am sure everyone would. Oh my goodness, this is fabulous information that we can use. It's not just giving a speech or giving a talk and not being able to use it, but they can take this tomorrow and go into their BNI chapter and use it immediately.
Yes.
Fabulous.
So what I would challenge them to do, and look at the poll, you can say yes or no. Well, would you be interested in a cost-effective way to improve your presentations? Is one would be, if nothing else, script your opening line of your 1-minute introduction and make it a question rather than who you are. And of course, you learn with baby steps. So go out and do it. And if you're a little nervous, call one of your best friends and practice with them, and they might help you.
Collaborate. Yes, collaborate. That's a fancy word, but you said partner up or your best friend.
Well,
absolutely.
One of the reasons they join BNI is to learn from each other's experience in a safe, supportive environment.
Great. Paul, how are we doing?
Would you believe 100% would be interested in a cost-effective way to improve their presentation skills? Yay, so maybe we should give them a demo of something that it would be available to them. So if I may, let's look at the magic of technology.
Oh, yes.
What we're going to do is let's do a demo. Okay, so... all right, let's see, share, and in a moment, all right, good. So what we are going to do here is, now I'm going to go back to, what we are in is Fripp VT. So what I want to do is search, let's go to, in Fripp Virtual Training, which, and you are one of my loyal clients because you had been part of my community for years. So can you see that, Paul?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So what you are looking at is Fripp Virtual Training, which is highly interactive, learn at your own speed with testing, tracking, and monitoring built in. So first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to go to the training center, where you can see that we have 12 different courses. So you can see one is getting started, and that's certainly not so basic basics. How would you find your content to put in your 10-minute speech or any others? The speech structure, the skeleton under the flesh of the words, how do you connect to the audience, just as we were saying, Elena, and make it more about them, whether it's a 1 minute or a 10 minutes, and the importance of a good story, as well as, of course, options of openings and where to find content and sales presentations. Because whether we know it or not, if we're an entrepreneur, we're in sales. So let's just show you an example with stories.
The importance of a good story. Nobody can resist a good story well told. In this course, you will learn the techniques that will make your stories and examples memorable and repeatable. If you're ready, click the Start Training button.
So now we're going to take just a moment and look at what one of the courses looks like. The importance of a good story.
How often have you sat in an audience and been mesmerized by a speaker? Was it their compelling content? Were their stories scintillating? Do they have the ability to reach out and grab you in a way you thought, wow, the speaker is talking just to me? Be honest. How many life-changing, career-building, or awe-inspiring presentations have you heard? Have you ever been that speaker? What would it mean to you and your career if you had that ability? I guarantee if you've heard a good speech, sermon, or business presentation that you enjoyed and remembered, at least one reason that made it memorable was the stories. Everybody loves a good story, and that is part of their power.
Now,
No
Paul,
matter
can
what
you
our
see
culture
me
is,
again?
what feeling,
I see you on your camera again, yes.
Okay, good.
somehow or
Well,
reward. Stories are how we learn values and our family's legacy. When we're in school, stories make history come alive.
all right, now I'm trying to
In
stop
business,
this and
we
I did
quickly
something
discover
wrong. Hang
that
on.
stories help us explain complex issues and are the...
All right, so that was just a sample, and as you can see now, I'm going to toggle back to my Google Hangouts and stop sharing. So now you can see me again, is that right?
Yes.
Good. So what you have just seen is how we go into the training center and the different courses, and as I am speaking to you, you can see there's a side asset which reinforces visually and with talking points what you're learning. And after a few minutes throughout all the courses, we then ask you questions. And when we first went in, you saw you would have to answer one of the questions before it would go on. Because it's not just watching videos. This is interactive. You have to learn the information because you have to ask. Now, after answer the questions. Now we're going to go back, and what we are going to do is go to the PowerPoint. So can you, let's be a second before we get there. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work backwards, because write down this BNI, no space, Elena, in case you are interested in what comes next. All right. Now for some reason this does not want to go backwards. Hang on. All right, there we are. There we are. So I'm going to go back again. So for example, what I'm going to recommend you do, you go to Fripp VT, and you can see here there is a free trial, or you can join now, but I recommend we have 3 of our most favorite, most popular chapters available for you to look at. And the one on stories is one of them. So you're going to go to a free trial, and you can then go in and see all the different courses and chapters. Now, the free trial, you see your first step to persuade, influence, and inspire. You just sign up for the free trial. This is when you, of course, sign up for a free trial. Now, if you want to join, then who would not want to join when they've seen the sample? When you join, you will be asked for a coupon code. That there you are, BNI, Elena.
Elena.
Elena. So I'm just reading what it says visually, as it says phonetically. Yes, I've been very good. I got it right until now.
You have.
I know. So what I'm doing is phonetically saying it. So your first month to get you situated would be $237.60 with your coupon code, and then $23 a month. And what you also get is we have monthly user meetings, rather like this, where we have different experts. This morning was on how to deliver good webinars. So now I'm going to go back to the Google Hangout. So can you now see me back live and in person?
Yes, we can.
Absolutely.
Good. In fact, did Cynthia want to know more about webinars? And you said to me, Elena, that a lot of your clients are delivering webinars.
They are. The members are moving into that area. Could you expound a little bit on, or give us some more information on webinars?
Yeah, perfect. And next time you come in, I want to see you live and in action. So take your camera.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you're
Okay.
too good looking to only look at a
thank
little. You see, we want us. That's it. Who can resist that face? No wonder you're successful. Yeah, one of our courses, course 11, is on webinars, and every aspect and technique I learned about webinars, I learned from my co-presenter from this morning. So one, a lot of what you do with a webinar is the same as in person. One, know the platform that you're going to use. So whether it's WebEx or it's GoToMeeting, understand how it works. What we're doing with this is a Google meeting with Webinar Jam, which is another format, which if you actually want to have a conversation back and forth, is the best way. And with this format, you can have thousands of people. Tom says with WebEx, it's great up to 25 people. If you can have several hundred, it's probably better if you want to use that GoToMeeting. So know your platform. Secondly, because there has to be variety, you have to keep people engaged. So one, have a lot of slides. Keep the picture moving, and frequently engage them with polls and questions as we're doing here. And I always like, if I'm doing it alone, I like to have a moderator with Paul. It's good to have someone else who can pose the questions. Even though we have Elena and I together, it's still good to have a moderator. If you are not used to talking to nobody, then I recommend you bring a friend into your office, and then you actually have somebody to talk to. That's easier. And the main issue that most people don't realize is you have to rehearse a virtual event the same way you would rehearse an in-person event. And just as with an in-person event, you don't close with questions, you need to have a good grabber opening and a good grabber close. So there's a lot the same and there's a lot different. It is a wave of the future. In fact, I believe it's a wave now. So you have to, if you want to be in business, you need to communicate with your clients the way they want to be communicated with. And if you have a client that's across the country, it's not cost effective to fly for short meetings. Doing it virtually is a great way.
What professional, Patricia, who should we contact to help us with the webinar? I mean, technically.
Technically. Well, it depends what platform. If you wanted somebody to really teach you well, I would Tom Drews, and what we are going to make available for all your community is when it's available, just as this event will be available for a replay, I'm going to send you the link, just because you're a friend of Fripp, I'll send you the link that you can send to all your friends in your BNI community so they can see. And if they wanted help, you could talk to Tom. Now, a lot of people, they just like to poke around and play themselves, which you're fine. At least you'll have the right way to do it. I need to save time, so I like to pay someone, sit next to me, show me how to do it.
Absolutely, and you know, if you're the speaker or you're doing the training on the webinar, if you're like me, you want to put all your efforts in on the presentation and not worry about the technical.
Yes. And what we chose to do this morning, because it was a GoToMeeting, and we had over 300 people signed up, we were using a lot of slides, and we chose not to show our faces. We felt in that format, because Tom is so experienced and has so many slides, we felt by seeing us would be a distraction. However, in this format, although we had a PowerPoint and we had a demo with Fripp VT, we chose to have this as a conversation, and so this format works well. We have to get comfortable with everything.
Well, do we have anything, Paul, that our viewers are asking?
Well, earlier Cynthia did ask how one would prepare to hold webinars for their clients. We answered the technical portion. I didn't know if there was any other tips that you had, perhaps to prepare mentally, or for as far as running a script or something like that, or having a test.
Well, yeah, certainly test, and Paul and I have been in situations we tested, everything worked perfectly well, and then you come in early. That's it, you come in early. We were here an hour ahead of time because you never know. Now, what happens with technology is sometimes it doesn't go right. One of my first meetings with this format, there were 478 people. And Google and Webinar Jam both had problems at the same time. Fortunately, I wasn't aware of it. So it's don't get put off, because people do understand technology is technology. Sometimes it lets you down a little. Don't let that hold you back though, because it works. When you know how to do it, it works more often than not.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are a true professional, because you're being transparent and letting us know that you do have hiccups in this type of new media, and you just go with the flow. That makes it the professional that you are. So thank you for sharing that.
Good. Now,
Yeah.
Jim just came in and said, this is very helpful. Will you be doing more meetings like this with Patricia?
Yes, Patricia, if we could get together, I would love to do that. How about you? Are you ready, game for this?
Well, I believe you are such a good friend and supporter of mine. I believe that we certainly should do it again in a couple of months. And I would encourage people, go take the free trial of Fripp VT, look at the 3 courses or the 3 chapters we have available for you. And then don't forget, BNI Elena, even though it's spelled ALANA. No space. So,
I want to say, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. One more thing?
But we need to be very respectful of people's time, and we're nearly coming up to the hour. So I will ask you to deliver your concluding remarks, and then I'll have the last walk-away line. Because remember, in all presentations, your last words linger.
That's right. I want to thank everyone, and I want to encourage you to use the free trial of Fripp VT and also the upgrade. I've used it, and it's been a help to me in many, many, many situations. Remember the code, BNI Elena, without a space, and it isn't case sensitive, so that you can put BNI ALANA, and you will enjoy the 20% discount. Feel free to share also the replay with any of your friends who will be able to enjoy this time that we've had together with Patricia. So, Patricia, what are your concluding comments for us this evening? Thank you so much.
All learning needs repetition and reinforcement, and I certainly hope your friends will remember me, Fripp. However, much more important to me, remember what Fripp stands for. Frequently reinforce ideas that are productive and profitable. Your next 1 minute, start with a question of the audience. Your next 10-minute presentation, what is your big idea, and your talking points prove the big idea that you would be much better off if you do business with us. And the next time you go to a networking event, go with a friend and act as each other's PR agent. Thank you. Until next time.
Thank you.